What do you think of when you hear the word wisdom? Maybe you think of books, of schooling, of people who have learned how the world works over their many decades of life. Or, if your Genshin brain rot is strong enough, maybe you think of Sumeru. Because in the world of Genshin Impact, Sumeru is the nation of wisdom. And in this nation, the concept of wisdom is explored thoroughly by Hoyoverse, using several narrative devices. And I just find the way they present this concept endlessly interesting. So what, according to Hoyoverse, is wisdom? Okay, first, some context. Each nation in the world of Genshin has an ideal, and an Archon that embodies that ideal. Sumeru's Archon is Nahida. Now, the first thing that stands out about her is that she's a child. This might seem strange at first. After all, she's a god looking over an entire nation and has lived for hundreds of years, so why would she be a child? There are a couple of narrative reasons for this, one being that while she's very old by human standards, compared to the other Archons, she's barely lived at all. Her character design is meant to reflect her youth and newness to the world. But also, in the world of Genshin, childhood is the embodiment of wisdom, and as a character who represents that idea, so too does Nahida embody childhood. Now, this might seem just as strange as the fact that a literal god looks like a 5-year-old. Wisdom is typically thought to be held by old people, people who have lived for a long time and therefore have gained lots of knowledge on how the world works. Children, on the other hand, have barely lived at all. But, because they don't have a lot of lived experience, they're constantly learning. Nahida, who is still relatively new to the world, is shown to be learning and taking joy from that learning. She has a childlike wonder when it comes to interacting with the world around her, and this is shown to be wisdom. The idea that wisdom is more than just knowing a lot of things is further shown by the dangers of the Akasha system. The Akasha is a system that is meant to gather all the knowledge of the people in Sumeru and compile it into one database. All you have to do is ask it a question and you will receive an answer. As long as you have the right clearance, of course. However, it is shown to have negative side effects, including not questioning the information you receive from it, basically throwing don't believe everything you read on the internet out the window, and reducing your ability to think. At the end of the Sumeru Archon quests, it was taken down for good. So, it can be said that the Akasha, and by extension just knowing a lot of stuff, is not true wisdom. Dreams are perhaps even more prevalent within Sumeru's story than childhood. It's pretty much impossible to play through Sumeru's story without noticing the importance of dreams. Over and over again, they come up in the Archon quests, story quests, even the world quests. Very long world quests. It's clear that in Genshin, dreams are a form of wisdom. The Akasha functions off of harvesting everyone's dreams, and looping dreams were used to gain enough knowledge to create a god, and then again to defeat that god. Several times, dreams have been used to solve problems and collect knowledge. Now, if I'm being honest, for a while I couldn't figure out the connection between dreams and wisdom. At first, I thought it had something to do with open-mindedness. After all, the Aranara have dream powers, and they only show themselves to children, who need open-mindedness to accept their existence. But then I read Nihida's character stories. They talk about how she uses dreams to organize and understand knowledge, and as she learned more things, so too did the dreams become more complex. I thought then that perhaps dreams have some relation to imagination. After all, there are many crazy things that happen in our dreams that our minds come up with when we sleep. But the more I think about it, the more I think that perhaps dreams are just their own things in Genshin. They're their own forms of wisdom, and although they might not function the same way as they do in real life, they still tend to lend themselves to very interesting narrative possibilities. The last point I wanted to touch on is compassion. It's clear that in Genshin, to be truly wise, one needs to not just know a lot of things, but also have compassion for other people. I think examining the differences between characters like Nahida, Dottore, Kafei, and Alhaitham will help us see why. To start off with, Nahida is shown to be constantly trying to understand and help other people. Although she struggles with empathy sometimes, she keeps trying to connect with her people and help them whenever they need it. As a literal god of wisdom, her compassionate nature is of note. Now, let's compare that to Dottore. You cannot deny that Dottore is a very smart man. He has been able to achieve things that most people wouldn't even dream of, including slowing the spread of Elazar, creating clones of himself and making himself immortal, and building a god. But in his methods, he is shown to have an utter lack of compassion. The people left under his care go through what can best be described as torture, and he has killed plenty of people before, including his own subordinates. So while Dottore is very smart and intelligent, he cannot be said to truly be wise. But while the differences between Nahida and Dottore are interesting, I think looking at Nahida's thoughts on Kaveh and Alhaitham is what will truly show that true wisdom has compassion. Kaveh and Alhaitham are interesting characters in that they're polar opposites, but have a great connection and almost always appear together. Kaveh is very idealistic and is always trying to help other people, even at his own expense, while Alhaitham is more rational and not scared of speaking down to others. Nahida clearly has a favorite between the two of them, even noting who she thinks is more wise. She says that Kaveh has an almost perfect grasp of what it means for Sumeru to be a nation of wisdom, while for Alhaitham, is the wise man truly wise to view the mediocre majority as defective? Because without them, there is no us. I think examining the differences between characters like Nahida, Dottore,